We are going to do some gramática. So go to page 222, 222. Okay, now, last capítulo, we did most, not all, most of the preterite. Okay, we did regular, AR, ER, IR. Okay, we did a couple of the spelling changers. Okay, we did stem changers, and for those, remember, only IR verbs, only verbs in third person, so él, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes, okay? And the change goes from E to I, O to U, okay? I'm kind of surprised. Nobody asked about irregulars. And that's okay, because irregulars are kind of hard. That's why we save it for the complete next chapter, okay? First off, though, we have the true irregulars, okay? Because remember, when it comes to irregulars, typically you just have to memorize them. So, like ser, soy, eres, es, somos, soy, son. Or ir, voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. Okay? It doesn't follow a pattern. Okay? Now, when it comes to the preterite, and I will say it, and I'm not saying it to like discourage you or anything, but it is hard. Okay? So we will spend a bit of time. So first off are the, I guess, like normal irregulars. Okay? So first off, you have dad. Does anyone remember what dad means? To give. Okay? So obviously this would be gave, all right, in the past. And those are the forms. Okay? Now, if you look closely, all right, you will notice that dar is actually an AR verb using the ER, IR endings. Okay? So in a sense, it's irregular. All right, so diste, dio, dimos, distes, dieron. You can just straight up memorize it, or try to remind yourself constantly that it's just the normal IR endings. Okay? Now, in the preterite, if a verb does not have accent marks, it is considered irregular. And so, in this case, whereas normally there would be an accent on the I and on the O of the yo form and the L and ella form, there isn't. Okay? So that's the first one. Hacer. What does hacer mean? To do or to make. So in the preterite, it means did or made. Okay? Now, some books, like the book where I took this slide from, just expect you to memorize it. All right? Hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicisteis, hicieron. Okay? But it actually does follow like kind of a weird pattern, which your textbook, this textbook, the one that we use, actually like encourages you to learn as well. So depending on which one is easier for you, you can either just memorize the verb outright or try to remember the actual pattern, which I will get to in un momento. Okay? Just FYI, I normally teach students to just memorize it. It's just, I've found in my experience that for most students, it's just easier to remember hizo, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hiciste, hicieron, you know, type of thing. But you might be different. There's always an exception. Okay? Finally, what does ir mean? To go. What does ser mean? To be. So, went and was. Mr. Santos, why are they next to each other and why is it the same block? Because, all right, you get two for the price of one. Ir and ser in the preterite are identical. Okay? Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron. If you say yo fui, that means both I went and I was. How do you know the difference? I was going to say, Jack has told us before many times, maybe in context. You need to look at the entire sentence. If it says, yo fui a Miami, you were not Miami, okay? You went to Miami, okay? Yo fui estudiante el año pasado, okay? I went a student, and while in English it might make sense that you went out with someone, that's not how we say it in Espanol. So I was a student. All right, yo fui estudiante. Okay, so this one is a straight up regular, just run of the mill irregular. All right, fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron. But once you've memorized that, you've literally learned 2 verbs. Okay. All right. Now, those your textbook arranges them differently. Okay. But if you look at the very top, it does give you, I mean, it writes eat and said separately, even though it's the very, very same thing. Okay. And does an ibit give you dar? Oh, yeah, it does. It does give you dar. Okay. But once again, dar, you can either just memorize it straight up or remind yourself that it just uses the IR endings. Okay. Now, it's not in this book, but I've used it before in a different book. What does the verb ver mean? Salud. To see. Okay. So in this case, it would be saw, S-A-W, right? Technically, it's okay. So it's not an irregular. You drop the er, vi, viste, vio, vimos, visteis, and vieron. But technically, it is because there is no accent marks. Okay, and like I said, there are some grammar explanations that still consider a lack of an accent mark as being irregular, even though it's following the rules. Okay, so you can always look at it that way. All right. Now, believe it or not, these are the easy ones. Okay. So now we get to the slightly more complicated ones, and we will spend time on these, okay? This one is new. The word andar. Andar is another way to say to walk, okay? In some countries, though, it can also mean to be. So, like when I lived in South America, people would ask me, "Cómo andas?" And so they were asking me, "How are you?" But to my Mexican ears, it sounded like they were asking, "How do you walk?" And I'm just like, "Con los pies?" Like, is that? So, like the first 2 weeks, I was just like, "Why do they keep asking me how I walk?" And why don't they just say "Cómo caminas" instead of "Cómo andas"? Well, andar, to walk. Okay, that's how we're going to use it in this class. Okay, so andar is another way to say to walk. Okay, we've had estar before. What does estar mean? To be. It's our other to be. Okay. The word poder means to be able to, or can. All right? Does anyone remember poner? Perfecto, good job, Cheyenne. To put her to place. Poner is to put her to place. Querer? To want. Muy bien. To want. Perfect. Okay. Saber. Saber is to know. Facts or information. What's the next two? Tener. What is tener?
To have.
To have. And then venir. Venir. To come. Yep. Okay. Now. Oh, they put them up there. Okay, there's two more. Decir is to say or to tell. And then, does anyone remember traer? To bring. Muy bien, whoever said that. To bring. Okay? And I suppose, should have left a little group. I'm going to put hacer right here. No, I won't. I'll put it in the bottom. Because like I said, you can either just memorize it straight up, or your textbook also has a way of doing it that's kind of a psycho way. All right? Now, you have the verb. You are going to change it. And you're like, yes, we know, Mr. Santos. No, before you do the change, you do another change first. And it's not a stem change, okay? So there's a certain level of memorization involved, and there's a certain level of, like, you know, spelling and all that. Estar becomes estuve. And I don't know why I just did that. Because andar becomes anduve. Estar becomes estuve. Poder becomes pud. Poner becomes pus. Querer becomes quis. Saber becomes sup. Tener becomes tu. Venir becomes vin. Decir becomes di. Traer becomes tra. And if you're doing a ser, it becomes hic. So you literally change it completely, like that. Okay? Then you add, and they're all the same endings. Okay? Now, I know that before I told you, like, oh yeah, you only memorize 2 sets, because it's, you know, hablé, hablaste, habló, hablamos, hablasteis, hablaron. Okay? Comí, comiste, comió, comimos, comisteis, comieron. Viví, viviste, vivió, vivimos, vivisteis, vivieron. Okay? But when it comes to these, I think it's 12 irregulars, you have a completely different set of endings. So, those endings only go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, sorry, I said 12. It only goes with those 11 verbs. Just as an FYI, there's actually more, but you wouldn't get those until like intermediate and advanced Spanish. Okay? Beginning Spanish, you only get those 11. All right? So, if you want to say, for example, yesterday I was at home. To be in a location is a star, so you change it to estuve. Okay? The yo form is just the E, so yo estuve en la casa. I was at home. Yo estuve. Okay? If If you want to say, I brought my book to class, okay, traer becomes tra, all right? And the yo form is an e, so yo traje mi libro a clase, okay? Did you have a good weekend? I'm talking to my friend Julia, and I'm like, Julia, did you have a good weekend? Well, to have is tener. I changed it to tuve because Julia is younger than me and she's my student. I'm using the tu form. So I say, Julia, tuviste un buen fin de semana. Okay? And she'd be like, sí, tuve un buen fin de semana. I had a good weekend. Okay? So, those are your irregulars. And yeah, anduv, estuv, bud, bu, skis, sup, tuv, vin, vi, trach, hic. All right? And then iste, o, imos, istes, ien are your endings for just those 11. And then, of course, you have the ones that you just memorized. Fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron. Diste, dio, dimos, dices, dieron. And if you want to do hacer on that side, then you can. Okay? Then it would only be 10 over here. All right? Now, there's some strangeness. I know. All right? First off, these two. Decir, which means to say or to tell, and traer, which means to bring. Okay? When you use it in this form, the ellos, ellas, ustedes, you drop the I, both in spelling and pronunciation. So if I want to say they brought their books, ellos trajeron los libros. Okay? If someone asks me, so what did your students say today? Oh, ellos dijeron blah, blah, blah. Okay? Now, it is very important that you spell it and say it correctly, and I will admit this, even a native speaker tends to forget, and so students have caught me saying trajeron or dijeron, which is incorrect, okay? And I always offer bonus points if someone catches me, okay? Students have caught me because even my brain slips, all right? Native speakers slip, all right, on that one. It's like you guys when you call it Syracuse. It's a Y. It's Syracuse. Cheyenne's laughing. She's like, oh shit, I did that. Yeah. It's trajeron, not trajeron. Okay, so yeah, even I do the Sarah. That's my equivalent of calling it Syracuse. Okay, it's a Y. It's Syrah. Okay, so yeah. All right, now this one. Okay, basically what ends up happening. All right, because you can actually do all of these. If you want to say like I did or I made, hic, and then the E, and it's ise, okay? You did or you made, hiciste, okay? The problem, of course, is when you get to this one, because the C before an O is a K sound in Spanish. It's a K sound in English, too. And so in order to give us the appropriate sound, we need to change the C to a Z. And now we have ISO. Okay, we have the correct sound. I mean, but that's it. So, like, you know, that's why that's pointed out in red. So some students just prefer to memorize this. Some students prefer to memorize that. And just remember that the C becomes a Z. Okay? Oh, uno más. If you think think way back to the preliminary chapter, we use I to indicate the existence of something. There is or there are. Okay? The past tense is ubo, H-U-B-O. There was or there were. Okay. So I could tell someone, hubo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 estudiantes en la clase. There were 7 students in class. Hubo 7 estudiantes. Okay? Preguntas. No sé. Preguntas about español.